Welcome to Plus One Forward, the podcast powered by the apocalypse, where we talk about tabletop role-playing games using or inspired by the Apocalypse engine. I'm your MC, Rich, and I'm joined by my guest, John Adamus. Hey, John, welcome to the show.
Oh, Rich, it is such a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Cool, okay. We always start off with the question of how long have you been playing PbtA games, and what was your gateway?
Well, let's see. I've been playing PbtA now 5 years? 5-ish years. My gateway was one single game of Dungeon World, one very damp afternoon with 4 of my friends. One game, one afternoon, one time.
Wow. Was that a good game?
It was. It was pretty good. I had no idea games could do that sort of thing at the time, so it was entirely revelatory. From what I vaguely remember, because it's been a while, we were the pretty typical hero adventure group, and we had to do something like we had to ferry a druid from point A to point B, and I believe we decided the druid was going to be a hipster of some kind. Like, he was way into artisanal goods and Marxism and like tight robes and fitted things. It was kind of obnoxious and kind of meta, but that game absolutely blew my mind. And I knew from there I wanted to transition away from the more traditional gaming I was doing into more, I want to see what this system does. Let's go.
Nice. That is really cool. I understand that. So if that was 5 years ago, and from what I heard, I listened to you on Misdirected Mark, you've been working on Noir World for quite a while. So I think you maybe kind of jumped right in behind the engine there as soon as you got tricked out to this. Is that right?
Well, so the design process had started prior to my playing that Dungeon World game. In fact, I had gone to play that Dungeon World game as a way to get out of a day of design, because I was really frustrated. I was trying to make my own thing. I was trying to make my own thing literally from the ground up, with my own mechanics,
right.
My own this, my own that. And it was a nightmare. Despite my working professionally in the industry and sort of working with all these great people and all these great ideas, it never occurred to me how daunting it would be to say, I'm going to make my own thing entirely from scratch, and it's going to be better than everybody else's. That's a big order. That's a way big order, and that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
So it completely stressed me out. And one of my friends said, hey, why don't you come on down and let's just play a game and get away from you, like, bashing your face against the wall, and we'll play a game and have a good time. And I said, sure, what game? And he's like, oh, I got Dungeon World. I'm like, okay, yeah, I've heard about Dungeon World. That's awesome. And we played it, and I immediately, that afternoon, like, while we were playing, I immediately jumped on, bought the book, had it shipped to my house, and then
wow.
It designed from there immediately changed. I immediately shifted because here's a system, here's some things I can do. Let's use this. And I am no longer embarrassed to say that I loved it so much. My early drafts of my game are modeled straight on Dungeon World. I copied page for page, line by line. If Dungeon World says this, that's the heading I use. And I did it so inflexibly that when I showed off my early work, the same friend, Brian, turns to me and goes, John, you've got a heading here about wizards and magic, and you're telling a game about film noir. What's going on? And it was so embarrassing, so mortifying that I had been sort of caught doing the exact thing I make a living telling people not to do. Don't just clone a thing and expect to get its success. Go make your own success. And, well, it sort of embarrassed me and sent me back to the drawing board. And through 70 plus drafts and between 900 and 1,000 hours of research later, here I am.
Awesome. Well, John, what I'd like to do is let's kick on over here to Read a Sitch. I want to talk a little bit about that playtesting process here. So,
absolutely.
Read a Sitch.
All right, John, I understand that even though Noir World is in like version 70 Bluzillion, that you've got other nuggets and ideas that are going on and you're going to subject your home group to.
Yes.
So normally we don't talk specifically about design on Plus One Forward, but I am really interested in the aspect of game designer, game runner for a home group. How do you keep your table playing new iterations of the same thing without them wanting to take pitchforks and burn down your home? Like, how do you keep your home group happy with a constantly evolving rule set? And is there a way to have a coherent story?
Absolutely. And that was one of the things that became fundamental for Noir World. aside from the easy answer of shameless bribery, you can get people to do a lot of things for promises of I'll pay for dinner for the next 4 sessions. They, of course, then decide suddenly they need to order the bigger menu items. But once you get past the bribery elements, the interesting story element came around because I realized that if I was going to keep these people interested in the same thing for the next 15 weeks, I had to give them tremendous amounts of agency and the ability to suggest to me, oh, I want to try this, John. How do I do this? What if I wanted to do this, that, or the other thing? And sort of balancing those two ideas really sort of became one of the major guiding principles in Noir World, which is the idea that players retain an equal and collaborative amount of agency in play. And I just kept bringing that back and bringing the enthusiasm back, and we kept coming up with new ideas. We kept coming up with, well, let's try this. And instead of it being a very structured, we're going to do it John's way, otherwise John's going to get cranky, it became more about, I'm going to sit together with my friends, and we're going to all collaborate together. And then I'm going to take these ideas, take them home, polish them up, and we're going to just keep coming back and keep coming back and keep coming back. That's how I keep my captive playtesters either engaged because they want to see where it goes next, or shameless promise of, I'll buy you dinner, you can tell me anything you want.
Okay, those are both pretty good methods. The coherent story comes from the fact that you're doing the back engine changes, but you still keep at the table the coherent story that has been, you don't new iteration make new characters, right?
No, it's you make your character whenever they might be, whomever they might be. And those characters may change internally in terms of rules resolution or mechanical resolution. But once you say, I'm going to be the dirty cop, okay, then you are my dirty cop for the next X number of weeks or months. No matter what I do to the rules, no matter what, you're my dirty cop. So whenever I'm what would the dirty cop do? You contribute the dirty copness to it. And that level of engagement, I think, really sort of carries over a whole lot of enthusiasm. It gives a sense of persistence. So it's not just, heave a great sigh, roll your eyes, get a fresh piece of paper, and make this sort of dramatic, kind of cranky statement about, oh, God, John's designing again. Instead, it turns into, no, I'm your dirty cop. I'm going to see how dirty we can go. I'm going to see, I've watched this TV show, John. I'm going to bring those influences in this week and see what happens. So it becomes this very great crucible for making sure the ideas are player enjoyable rather than just whatever makes John happy for a few hours.
Smart. Okay. So you're layering on bribery and, hey, we don't have to start over fresh every single time. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we've talked a little bit about this Noir World. Why don't we go ahead and open our brains up to this Noir World, talk about it more specifically. Okay, John?
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Open your brain. All right, John, you've got this Noir World as of the time that this episode comes out. It is on Kickstarter. It is your PbtA game that you are making happen. There is a quick start that's available for any of the backers. What is Noir World? What's the setting and what's it about?
Okay, this is the question where I was so afraid to bring this up because it's really hard to define what the setting is. Basically, The setting is all notions film noir, crime fiction, hard-boiled fiction, old classic movies, that sort of atmosphere of light and dark and shadow and gray and rainy streets and guys in fedoras and guns and violence and sex appeal and all these layered, emotional, nuanced stories. Because that setting is not tied down to one thing. We're not looking at a sort of an apocalyptic wasteland, or we're not looking at a typical high fantasy dungeon experience. This is the sort of toolbox to tell a broad range of stories that are all sort of connected by the fact that you are dealing with lots of good and bad and sort of nebulous in-between characters telling really emotional stories and then having to live with terrible consequences from their decisions.
Okay, interesting. Now, noir, when I think of noir, some of the things that I think of, and help me, right?
Sure.
I'm no genre expert. I haven't done 900 to 1,000 hours of research. But when I think about that, I think about class struggles, often socio-political struggles that are going on that are represented through a mystery. Is that what Noir World is?
That's what Noir World can be. One of the big major elements at least in Noir World as it sort of evolved, was I wanted to give players a permission slip to create whatever sort of evocative story they wanted. So if they wanted to lean into, like, let's examine class structure, let's examine social politics, let's examine all the different elements, the good and the bad of the time period and the source material from the 40s. If you wanted to, like, play a little soapbox and make a strong statement, you can do that. I wasn't going to do it for you because, quite frankly, I don't think enough people really need to hear me say the same 6 things over and over. So I wanted to leave everything sort of available and open for people so that they can interpret what they want, how they want, in such a way that as long as there are questions of crime or interest or emotion or consequence, it's all going to feel the same way. Regardless of the era we set it in, whether we go to the 1920s all the way up into Blade Runner, depending on the decade, you see the same elements. You see the elements of class struggle and social justice and prejudice and sexism and bigotry and money and guilt and shame. These things all move through the decades in different ways and different facets, but they're always present, which has always been my cue to say, oh, well, these things are universal. These are the elements that make it, not just the fact that everybody wears a hat or that it's 1930. Those are set dressing. That's just adjectives when we're looking at the chewier parts of the creative idea.
Nice. Okay. So tell me a little bit. You've got a toolbox here. What are the mechanics that in Noir World would be different from, say, Apocalypse World, like the beginning? Or if you want to compare it to Dungeon World, like what's different from Dungeon World?
Well, I can compare it to both.
Okay.
Noir World has no single fixed GM. There's no single MC. It's entirely collaborative.
Oh, man, what? No, what?
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. Okay. Interesting. All right, keep going.
Perhaps I should explain this, Rich. There's a thing that happens when we have a game with an MC or a director or a GM, where generally, physically at the table, we put that person at one end, maybe that's 6 p.m. or 12 p.m. on the clock face, and then we all sort of orient around them, right? And then we, the players, always have to look at the GM to see what we're going to do. And it becomes this very reactive relationship because I'm waiting for the MC to tell me, oh, well, the NPC does this. Or in more traditional gaming, it's tell me about the environment. Tell me what happens as the consequence of my action. So I'm very limited in terms of what I can do as a player because at some point it comes down to, well, all right, so this guy's punching me. I guess I punch him back. That's not necessarily broad agency. That's a very limited scope, and it's dependent on the MC having done a whole lot of work. How much planning do we do as an MC? How much time do we spend on our day job lunch break scratching out, well, if John's doing this and he decides that he's going to, drive the car into here, what happens? That level of planning puts a tremendous amount of pressure on one person. When the tools of storytelling, zoomed out, don't have to be held singularly by one person in order to get the idea across. So you take the elements like hard moves and soft moves, you break them down, put them in new language, you dress them in different clothing so that they don't seem like these hard and fast game things that new people really don't know how to engage with. Side note, one of the major issues I had was that Dungeon World seemed more accessible in terms of mechanical play and how to follow along than Apocalypse World. Apocalypse World, I read the first time, is very intimidating. It presumed I understood already, so Dungeon World was a better entry point for me. I wanted to get around that entirely, so I decided to empower everybody at the table on equal footing. We're all the MC, we're all the director, I refer to it as a director because you are all collaborating around the table, regardless of where you sit physically around the table. We're all working together to have a good experience, right? That's what we want in our gaming sessions. So I've attempted through, I finally get to use my film degree, I've attempted to codify the mechanics and the concepts that allow people to tell stories about other characters, indirectly about themselves, and the relationships between everyone.
Interesting. Okay. Wow, I'm really curious to see how that goes. Okay. So what else is different? I mean, that's significant. But what are some other things about Noir World that are a little different from Apocalypse World?
Oh, well, there's a list. A lot of the elements that we take as assumptions or we take for granted are entirely modular. I already mentioned that the eras, the decade you can set the story in, is entirely modular. The table gets together and asks, what era do we want to tell this story in? Because the elements and the fundamentals of this sort of fiction aren't limited to the fact that the source material exists only from about 1940 to the late 1950s. There's a whole range of how these things can be expanded upon or challenged, and because then you look at if you're talking film, you've got neo-noir stuff that came out from like the late 80s up until now, when you get Blade Runner and you get into the Scorsese films and all these different things. So you're not bound by time period, which also tremendously frees you up for what sort of players you can have, what sort of characters you can have. Because now you're no longer limited to, I have to be a Humphrey Bogart character. I have to be a Sam Spade. I have to be this one specific thing. Instead, now you get to be a whole range of things. Additionally, the plot-driven elements that an MC would usually deploy, here's the problem we're going to face tonight. You've got to go take over this building. You've got to go stop these bad guys. That is also placed in a collaborative sense, because the crime element, what would be the plot engine of the story, is entirely modular as well. You consult a chart, you roll 2 dice. There's your possible crime. Now, going one step further, you also don't have to resolve the crime in order to have a good time. Because if you look at film noir, if you look at the source material, some of those plots make no sense. There is absolutely no rhyme or reason as to why this person is going here to talk to this person to do this about that. And in the end, it ultimately doesn't matter, because somebody either gets shot or hauled off to jail, and then there's credits, and it was an enjoyable 2 hours you spent on the couch, but you're not exactly sure what it was you watched. So I've managed to liberate the concept of you have to do this story and it has to go in this direction. I've managed to pull out the idea of you have to play a certain thing a certain way, because roles in this game are entirely modular and entirely up to the player. If you want to have the least heteronormative experience possible, regardless of era, I strongly super encourage you to do that. You make your character your own. Not just, this is John's version. No, it's your version of whatever it is you're making. Go make it your own. There's more than enough toolbox and encouragement and suggestion in the book so that you can look at it and go, okay, when Rich plays, I'll pick one. When Rich plays the attorney, Rich's attorney could be anywhere from Matlock to Perry Mason to that sort of scummy guy in late night television. There's a whole wealth of options that you can have. And I really wanted to encourage that, because I fundamentally believe that motivated players, encouraged by a system that enables them to make their own choices, have a better time no matter what the game is.
John, I'm kind of rolling back to the GM-less thing. Are there agendas and principles that the entire playgroup is expected to live by, and is that what reinforces the noir aspect of the game?
Yes. There are really 3 things that sort of reinforce what I would call the noirness of this, right? So there are, first of all, 2, what I refer to as the promises we make. 1, we are all going to share the spotlight. This is not just one person's night, right? In so many games, you can get a story where it's, okay, you're our gun nut. This is going to be a combat night, so you're going to have to do the most of the dice rolling and the story carrying and all that. And I wanted to avoid that. Also, my players wanted to avoid that, because we all got tired of Craig rolling really well and kind of taking over everything. Additionally, the other promise we make is that we're all in this together to make a good experience for us all, which means none of what we do ever becomes exclusionary or aggressive against another person. We're in this together. We're having a good time. I am not going to suddenly turn around and be a jerk to you just because it amuses me and bothers you. So we're all in this. We're all in this together. Additionally, once you get past those promises, which I would consider to be the agenda, you look at the actions, the things the players can do, both the broadest 4 actions,
right,
but also the specific actions to each role. You can do things that no one else in the story can do. The really simple answer would be the doctor, the disgraced doctor. You've lost your license. You're the only character that can heal other characters. The gambler, and one of the most recent stretch goals, the Toon, as in Looney Tune, are some of the only characters who affect play on a meta level, meaning you care about, you can affect what people's dice rolls are, because a gambler gambles. Additionally...
You said the tune?
Yeah.
You can play a wow.
So there's a film from way back when my brother was a little kid and I was a slightly not so young kid. Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Yeah.
That's a film noir. It's played with cartoons, but the concept there is disgraced detective with a haunted backstory has to solve a crime against a larger background. Christopher Lloyd's involved. There's a big city element. There's a fatale Jessica Rabbit. There's sort of a Patsy character. What I refer to in the game is called the citizen character, which would be Roger Rabbit, although the tune covers that. And Eddie Valiant is your private eye. You can absolutely tell Who Framed Roger Rabbit using Noir World. It was one of the stretch goals that I had been joking about, and then somebody was like, yeah, you should totally do that. So I did. One of the things the tune can do is affect dice at the table, because I believe every part of play should be enjoyable for everybody.
That's great. That's great. Sorry for the interruption.
No, it's totally fun.
Really...
I love the digression. The other part of the triangle, so you've got this agenda, you've got the actions. The other part of the agenda is the hook system, the backstory you collaboratively create in character creation that allows people to have an immediate, impactful, emotional backstory. So, for example, you might be, Rich might be the attorney, as before, and I might be, let's see, let me pick a really good one. I might be the politician. And I might take a hook off my list to say, this person, being you, Rich, is somebody who has stood in my way for the last time, and today's the day I take care of it.
Nice.
You might look at your sheet and pick something off there like, you are no longer going to tolerate this person being an obstacle toward your own dreams. So immediately we create a very evocative and open-ended thing where we are now two people butting heads and we haven't even rolled dice. We haven't even done play. But we've set up a relationship with a power dynamic.
Nice. I like that.
That completes our triangle between agenda, actions, and hooks, so that's how we feel noir, no matter what era we tell it in, no matter what gear we give ourselves, no matter how we describe ourselves. We have these relationships, and that gives us the vibe that we're trying to carry forward.
I like that. All right. You said there was something like 4 moves? Say 4 basic moves? Is that what you said?
There are 4 basic moves, and then every roll picks 2 of an additional 4 moves specific to them. Because
cool. Okay.
Yeah, so you get 6 total. There are 4 things that everybody can do. They can talk it out, which is exactly what it sounds like. Check it out, which is to investigate or get more information. Fight it out, which is exactly what it sounds like. And help someone out, or help it out, which is exactly what it sounds like. And it's entirely designed so that you are either acting on your own interest or acting in someone else's. And then you have your own moves coming off your sheet. And most of the moves specific to your role are either titled with jokes and puns, because those things amuse me, and I believe players should read a character sheet and not be bored. An example would be on the socialite wealthy person sheet. You have a move called Swine Before Pearls, because that makes me laugh. And so you come up with a basic 6 moves that everybody can do. And then the director has 10 to 12 moves depending on how they want to go, and every director can do up to 3 things before the director position passes to the right. And that's how we keep everybody involved. And then when we go once around the table, that's Act 1 of our movie. We go once more around the table, Act 2. That is usually the end of the movie, because either we've resolved the plot or several people are dead. Yeah, it's a great divergence from Apocalypse World and the world system in general, because I borrowed heavily from so many world PbtA roots. But I like to think I made it artisanal and developed something that feels good without looking like it.
So you tie this all back. You were inspired by a bard. You want to be artisanal. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely.
Inspired. Yeah.
Absolutely.
The question then, you talked about one time around first act, second time around second act. This all sounds one-shotty. Is this a one-shot system?
It's designed to do probably 80%, 85% one-shots. You can do what I refer to as sequels and trilogies, which is you pick up the character and carry them forward one more time.
Right.
But ultimately, it's not designed to go much past trilogies, 3 plays through the same character. And that's just because of the nature of the stories you tell. If you bump off enough people, there's just not going to have that same relationship dynamic anymore because the guy you were dealing with, you shot. He's not coming back.
Gotcha.
It's designed for shorter play, but there is what I would refer to as an obscene amount of replayability between 16 to 18 possible hooks per character, and I've got, right now, I think the maximum count, including stretch goals, puts us almost to 40 possible rolls.
Wow.
So...
Wow.
Yeah.
That's like Tremulous level of rolls there. That's crazy. Or Dungeon World level.
Yeah. I'm really quite flattered by that because these are the books I like cracked open to the point where I broke their spines and then just went through and digested. How does this game do it? How does that game do it? Am I going to copy that or am I going to do my own thing? And it was really a much better experience once I kind of started doing that in a more positive way.
Cool. Okay, so of all these moves, John.
Yeah.
What's your favorite move and why?
Okay, so the Citizen, and if you're a film guy or gal, it is based on Fred McMurray. I don't know if everybody knows who Fred McMurray is. He's the dad from My Three Sons, if you're my age.
Okay, okay.
He plays a very kind of square-jawed... He's what you think of when you think typical 1950s dad. He is what everybody would want to like, oh, shucks, son, you're okay. That guy. That's the Citizen. And he has a move called Patsy, which is when you find yourself caught up in someone else's plans and you don't know what to do, you roll plus brains. On a 10 plus, you tell the director which role that you have a hook with that you're about to ask for help. And then before this scene ends, go ask them for help. On a 7 to 9, the director will tell you which one of the roles you have a hook with is going to need to be asked for help, even though you don't want their help. And on a 6 minus, the director will either offer you a terrible choice that you're totally going to hate, or they can set up something to pay off later.
That is nice. I even like that the 6 minus doesn't, like a good PbtA move, it doesn't stop the action from happening. I like that. That's really cool.
None of the mechanics for any move, I believe, should stop anything. It shouldn't stop momentum, it shouldn't stop options, and it shouldn't stop the character from making another choice immediately thereafter.
Very cool.
You want to maintain that speed. You want to keep people playing. You want to keep people engaged. Because there is nothing worse than sitting at a table and waiting for somebody and they've got their head down on their character sheet and you're just staring at the top of their head and you're waiting for them to kind of go, okay, this is what I want to do. And they pop up like a meerkat and then they drop back down. And it's this very stiff and stilted. And if you've ever played with me, I'm impatient. So if you're taking a long time to kind of probe through, I will less than often gently nudge you to kind of like pick up the pace because it's 9:30 at night. People have day jobs in the morning and we want to get moving, so don't dawdle. So it's designed to get you in and keep you moving and keep going and make what you think is the wrong decision, but ultimately it will pay off because we'll have a good time.
You got me excited here, John. I really like to get this to the table. A little demo, a little scene here. You think maybe we could act under fire and try this out?
Absolutely, we should.
It is time to act under fire. Okay, John, I am going to be playing Mr. Plusser, and I'd like to play a little bit of Noir World. What do we need to do to make this happen?
All right, so we are going to assign you a role, first of all. I know previously we had talked about making you the attorney, but let's make you the dirty cop.
Okay.
And the template for the dirty cop is, if you're familiar with Batman, it's Harvey Bullock.
Okay, good. I thought I was going to have to play Batman. I can't pull that off.
Well, I will tell you that Batman is one of the unlocked stretch goals.
Awesome.
If you did want to, dust off your cape and your utility belt, that is a thing you can do. But right now, you're going to be the dirty cop.
Okay.
And let's assume that I'm the director, because we'll do this in 2 parts. We'll do this you as the player, you as the role, and then we'll do this as you as the director, because those are the 2 halves of play that you sort of have to juggle. And we're going to assume that you're going to take a stab at directing. So the director, me.
I gotta be honest with you, John. I've always wanted to direct, so this is good.
Yeah, this is going to be great. You're going to love this.
All right.
So the director takes a look at the note cards laid out in front of them, and they choose one of the locations that we've all collaborated on during world building, city creation. Let's say it's the docks.
Okay.
Because docks are awesome. And then we'll set the scene. I'll say that it's, night. It has been raining for 6 hours. The streets are slick. The yellow haze of fluorescent light burns in small spheres overhead. There is the gentle hum of a tugboat off in the distance as the fog rolls in. We set the scene very evocatively. We try to picture it as visually as possible because John watches a lot of television. So, and let's give you some motivation. So let's assume this is not the first scene in the film. Let's assume we're kind of deep in, and let's say you're going to go meet another role. We're going to have this conversation. We've set up some tension. You're going to meet the private eye, who, at least in all the example text I've written so far, almost always dies. So you're meeting the private eye, who used to be, according to your hooks, your best friend, but then they betrayed you so that they could get ahead on a case, and you've never forgiven them. And you've carried this I've been betrayed relationship. And ideally, you're just itching to talk about it. So the director says, okay, it's the docks. You've brought the private eye meets you. Remember, you're really, really furious with him for betraying you. And now he's threatening to do it again. What do you do?
Okay. I would, drive up in my sedan.
Sure.
We have the headlights come across. He's standing near the edge of the docks there. Some cargo shipment, large crates that are nearby, and I park not far, get out, and Mr. Plusser is a big guy. I mean, maybe he played some football at one point, and he's gonna walk right up to Joey. Joey, what the hell's going on here?
And this is where Joey, who would normally be played by another player entirely, it's NPCs and other roles are played by players, not the specific director.
Nice.
The director's just there to sort of steer the puppet show, as I refer to it, and organize things, but the players react to each other dynamically. So Joey will turn and go, man, Plusser, you just gotta understand. It's tough, but I had to do it, and I'm gonna do it one more time. You gotta believe me.
Mr. Plusser grabs him by the lapels, right?
Awesome.
Holds him close.
Were you planning on like getting rough with this guy?
I think
maybe a little intimidation,
so, right? We're gonna get rough and make a point before we have a conversation, just to make sure that Joey knows how important this is.
All right, so it sounds to me like you're gonna fight it out, which means you'd roll plus risk because it's dangerous.
Okay.
You'd roll 2d6 and add. Let's make it interesting. You'd add -2.
Oh, wow. I am the worst at this. Okay, here we go.
Yes, because you're not normally up for this, but this is your buddy, and you're willing to throw down. You're angry. It's been a thing. So Let's see. You got a 6 -2 is a 4.
Yeah, I have rolled a 4. This looks terrible.
This is going to go great for you. So at a 6 minus, the director will give you the option of either this thing's going to get worse before it gets better, or you're going to tell me what you're going to do to get out of this before you really, really get hurt.
It's going to get worse before it gets better. I think
yeah.
There's just enough held back here that the intention was to just pop Joey in the nose once, but it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The director is led in text to be very yes and. To be very encouraging. Yeah, it is. It's totally going to do it. So the director's pumped. The director wants to see this thing get bad. So you and Joey are tussling by those cargo crates.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you sort of bounce around and push off, one of them cracks open and spilling out onto the tarmac of these docks. Let's make it really interesting. It is an entire case of unmarked guns. This is an item, perhaps, that we've created in the story. So now there are firearms just sitting around. They're within arm's distance. Maybe one's loaded. What do you want to do now? The fight's still going. What do you want to do, Plusser?
I do not want him to get near a gun on the off chance that it's loaded, so I'll try to angle myself and shove him down.
All right.
Joey, I can't let you do this.
Yeah, and the two of you realize there's guns and you're both struggling. So, since you're the one taking action against him, you'd roll another plus risk, so it's 2d6 -2.
Jeez, I'm the worst. I rolled another 6.
No, this is fantastic. So it's going to get worse even still, because now, as you guys are tussling under the single fluorescent light, up comes some police. The director is going to bring somebody into the scene. The director is going to bring in one more, but we're going to bring in the good cop, your current partner, the goody-goody, the Boy Scout.
Oh, man.
Who's going to break this scene up and move you along, and the director chair is going to pass. So your next scene, with Plusser as the dirty cop and Joey, would likely be at another location, which we would probably say is the 27th Precinct interrogation room that we've previously created during city creation.
Okay.
So that's how this feels as a character. But now let's look at it when you're directing.
Okay, let's do that.
So now play is rotated around and now you're directing. You cannot direct your own character. It violates something called the Ziggy principle, which is basically a nice way of saying if you're in charge of your own problems, it's boring for everybody else.
Oh, yeah.
It's sort of like being your own GM. Why don't you always roll a 20? It's not very thrilling, so we take that. You can't direct yourself, but you decide, well, while all this was going on the docks at night, we want to know what other people were doing. So you pick 2 other people off the table, and let's say we take the Mook and the disgraced doctor, 2 other roles in this film, and they're meeting across town. So you use a director move called Meanwhile, which allows you to set up a scene in parallel to the scene you were just in. So you'd say, meanwhile, while Joey and Plusser are having a scrum down by the docks, meanwhile, the doctor and the Mook, who have been trying to sort of kidnap the mayor because that's the crime of the story. They're planning this. No one else knows this, but the crime's there.
Okay.
They're having this chat, and you would give them motivation. You'd sort of steer them forward. Both them, I will tell you right now, the Mook and the Doctor work really well together. Just because of how they were mechanically crafted. They sort of the Mook is a goon, so the Mook fits in with damn near everybody.
Right.
Send out, I need muscle, send the guy. I need a Weasley guy, send the guy. And so the Doctor and the Mook arrange a kidnapping because that's the crime. The problem is, in this particular story, you would remind them that during city creation and crime development, that we agreed in advance that this crime was going to happen during the course of the movie. Because the plot can be decided either in advance or during the film.
Okay.
Again, it's another modular layer I have. So you give them directions, the Doctor and the Mook sort of hash out, and let's assume they roll about as well as you just did as a player.
Wow.
So
Poor guys.
it's terrible. They end up creating this very convoluted tangle of, well, in order to kidnap the mayor, we have to burgle this and break in this. We better kidnap somebody else. And it becomes this sort of very intense mess that neither of them are prepared to do. And you as the director look over and go, okay, I am going to set up something for later. And both these players will turn to you and go, I think your entire conversation was overheard by the waitress.
Nice.
And then all you have to do when you are content with that scene, when you've given yourself enough narration, when you've made other people amused, and when it's been interesting, you say, all right, end scene, we're fading to black. That's the move that designates we are moving directors. You pass the director to the side, and off you go to the races.
Cool. So meanwhile, and you build that scene, is the expectation that every scene, every director pass, they need to push towards some kind of conflict resolution or some kind of die roll, or can you really just narrate and then pass?
It is entirely possible to play this game and never touch the dice.
Okay, interesting.
You can if you want. I mean, there's plenty of dice to roll. There's plenty of opportunity, but it is also possible to say, you know what, we're just going to narrate this out. And we will automatically then concede our dice rolls because that's more interesting. We know the story we want to tell. We want to be terrible criminals who do this really poorly. Okay, so you are more likely than not take low dice rolls just by default. That is entirely up to the player. That is entirely up to play. Some people can roll dice when others don't, and it still works. It still comes together.
Cool. So again, this is on Kickstarter. And when is the Kickstarter up for people that are listening to this when it first comes out?
The Kickstarter ends at, it's April the 19th at 9 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. So you have, 18 days or most of the month to sort of back at whatever level you like.
All right. Yeah. As the time that this comes out, you'll have a couple weeks left on that Kickstarter. All right. And it is fully funded, so it is a thing that's happening.
Oh, it's definitely happening. It is.
Yeah. All right. Well, again, thanks, John, for coming on the show. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Rich. Thank you so much for this.
Plus One Forward is a production of the Gauntlet community and Richard Rogers. You can find us on gauntlet-rpg.com or follow us on Twitter at GauntletRPG. The games mentioned on this show use the Apocalypse engine, which is a creation of Vincent and Magay Baker. The music for Plus One Forward is from the Savage Arl Hotbed CD Gomi Daiko. The songs used are Gomi Daiko Metal version and Process. You can find more amazing tunes by Savage Arl Hotbed on their website, savagearlhotbed.com.